What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Untold Stories Athlete Edition, Episode 3. If you're new, welcome. My name is Briana Garcia. I'm the host of the podcast. And a little background about what the Untold Stories is about. I just interview Baylor student athletes, and I get to know them through things like faith, education, family, friends, or even just getting to know about them as athletes with their sport. So today, for my third episode, I have Caroline Fuller.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? I'm so excited.
Me too.
Caroline Fuller is on the equestrian team. She is a senior out of Denver, North Carolina. She's in the jumping seat event, which I don't really know much about now, but during the podcast, we'll get more into it later. And just a little bit more background of Caroline. She's a biology major, and she's gotten all Big 12 Academic Rookie of the Year in 2019. And then in 2020 and this year, 2021, she's gotten Academic All-Team Big 12 Academics, which is incredible. I know that's really hard being like in a sport and being like a biology major, and you're pursuing nursing school, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. And also this past September and October, Caroline has gotten 2 Big 12 Rider of the Month, correct? Which no Baylor Equestrian rider has gotten in history at Baylor University. So that's incredible. I love it.
Pretty exciting.
Yeah. So basically, the first question I ask all of the student athletes is why you chose Baylor University.
So whenever I was like starting to look for schools, just like out of high school, I was in California at the time. We had moved from North Carolina to California, and I knew that I didn't want to stay in California, but I wasn't sure if I was quite ready to go all the way back east again. And a lot of schools that I just had liked ended up to be in Texas. So me and my dad came down to Texas and just like looked at all the schools here, you know, like Baylor, TCU, SMU, A&M, kind of did the whole thing. And so all of those schools have an NCAA D1 equestrian team, which I really wanted to do coming out of high school, but I wasn't quite sure if I was going to be able to, just recruiting-wise. And so I had been talking to coaches at kind of all of those schools, definitely had a couple backup schools kind of back east that I was considering going to if I didn't make a team. And then, honestly, I was kind of down to being between Baylor and TCU were kind of my top schools. Like, I just loved both the campuses, like, had good tours, like, talked to some great people, like, knew a couple people on the team. And then, honestly, it really just came down to the fact that, like, not being heavily recruited, I didn't have a whole lot of options for where I could ride, and Baylor was the first school that offered me a spot, and I said, all right. Like, I wasn't gonna wait around to hear from any other coaches till the spring, which would have been my next option, and I fell in love with the school as soon as I stepped on the campus, and that's pretty much it. Really just the fact that I really wanted to ride, and that was realistically gonna be kind of my option to get started with it.
Yeah, no, I think that is incredible. I think it's so cool that you kind of had like your options open, and you, right when they offered you a spot, you were like, okay, let's do it. You took that leap of faith, which is really cool. And I've heard a lot of other student athletes kind of have that similar thing, that they're just like, they get that offer and they're like, okay, let's do it. And also, so you were a walk-on as a freshman, correct? And now you're like one of the top riders on the equestrian team. So can you talk a little bit about, you know, how that whole process was for you?
Yeah, so coming onto the team, you know, like I just kind of had talked about a little bit, like I was just like a little bit here kind of like by luck. Like, one coach offered me a walk-on spot, and I just kind of took it and ran with it. And I just like came onto the team just having just really trying super hard to have that great positive attitude and just be thankful that I was there in the first place. And I was really lucky and fortunate to have a coach that really did like pay attention to everybody. And I kind of got pulled from that, not like walk-on spot, but just the spot of like not doing a whole lot, practicing, you know, maybe once or twice a week. And she just kind of saw something in me that was like, well, I guess I should give her a chance. And then I went from my fall semester freshman year practicing once or twice a week. And then in the spring semester was when things kind of flipped around a little bit, and I got thrown into 5-6 days of practice a week. And it took a little while to kind of get used to it and make that adjustment going like halfway through the year from not doing a whole lot competition wise to really just kind of being thrown right into it. And I just tried my best to, work as hard as I could every day, just have a great attitude in practice, be as helpful as I could, and just, do all the things consistently. And it's definitely been a long road. I've definitely had, definitely come quite a ways, like as far as like competing and just confidence in the ring and out of the ring and on the team. And it's really just been a great experience overall. And it's like really cool that like I get to like say like that's kind of where I came from. Like I didn't just start at the top and cruise my way through, I kind of had to start from like the very bottom of being a little bit of a nobody to working my way up.
Yeah. Do you have like any advice for other student athletes that maybe were in or could be currently in that position that are trying to get to that more where they're competing and traveling and things like that?
Yeah, for sure. I'd say the biggest thing that coaches and teammates notice the most would be just like your everyday attitude, just in everything, like at team meetings and practice and workouts and class, like how you act and the things you say around your teammates gets noticed so much more than you think. Whether it's just like, whether you're saying stuff or not, whether it's just like the look you have on your face, just like being grateful and appreciative to be there and just putting in that hard work day in and day out to where it's noticed by your coaches.
Yeah. And I know when you were giving me your response to your first question, you were talking about practicing like once, twice a week, and then you got moved to 5 to 6 times. And I know a little bit about that with like equestrian practices, but a lot of people don't. So can you kind of explain like what the equestrian sport of D1 college looks like in, the practicing once or twice or multiple times a week and things like that?
Yeah, for sure. So we actually have a really, really big team here at Baylor. We have around 65 people. So obviously we can't all practice at once. That would just be super chaotic. Yeah. And so equestrian in college is split up into, you have a Western side and a jumping seat side, and I do jumping seat. And so we have it's probably pretty even, like 30 Western and 30 jumping seat student athletes. So even with just the 30 of us, like it's way more productive, and we don't have enough horses to practice 30 people at once. So our practices get split into, I'd say, groups of about 4 to 5 people-ish. And based on like how much you're competing, because during competitions, we only have 5 roster spots, and then there's a couple extra positions, whether it be like alternate or exhibition, which are competing, but they're not like counted into the overall score. So the people that are in those probably 5 to 10 spots practice a lot more than people who don't compete, really just because like of the time that the coaches have and the time available in the ring and the horses that we have, just how many we have that are capable of doing everything. So I kind of lost my train of thought.
You're good.
But so for practices, like some people practice once or twice a week if you're not competing, and some people that are competing practice like 5 to 6 days.
Yeah. And do you think those people that don't practice as much, it can kind of get difficult of like building relationships with your coaches, with your teammates and things like that?
Yeah, for sure. Which like, I feel like I can talk on a good bit because like I have been in both of those positions, like those 1 to 2 days a week. It can be difficult to build like a good relationship with your coach or some of your teammates that you might only see at practice if you don't have classes with them, or maybe you only see them for an hour during the morning at workouts or whatnot. But yeah, because the coaches, like, that's like another thing too that I would say, like, I would suggest for like people kind of in like those positions that like want to work their way up, would be to kind of go out of your way to like just like stop in your coach's office and like say hey, and like try to like make that extra effort to build those relationships with your coaches or with your teammates, when you might not realistically see them like as much as other people would.
Okay. And a lot of people talk about equestrian. The first thing they want to talk about is the horses, because I think a lot of people know you can't travel with all your horses to away meets and things like that. So can you kind of explain how y'all are training with different horses to help prepare y'all for like competition and stuff like that?
Yeah, for sure. So we have, I'd say, around 30-ish jumping seat horses, maybe. That could be totally off, but that's just what I'd guess. And so when we have a home meet, we use our horses at home, and that's why there's such like a big like home team advantage for our sport, because like even though like it's kind of randomized draw which horse we get to ride, and the way that it works is like, so someone from the away school and say me or someone else competing would both be riding the same horse, and then it's judged based like on whoever does a better job on that horse.
Wow.
So obviously if you know the horse, if you ride them weekly in practice and like get to practice on them before the meet, then that's a pretty big advantage versus if you're coming from an away school or when we travel to away meets, you get 4 minutes. And for me, for the jumping seat, we get 4 jumps. And the course that we do is around 9 or 10 jumps. So you get to pick 4, and you have 4 minutes to kind of try to figure the horse out. And then you just have to go in and do your best, which is a lot different than riding outside of college, like in high school or before this, or just outside in general, is that you usually have like your own horse that you're riding consistently every day. So you know them pretty well.
Yeah. And 4 minutes, that's insane. That's like being like playing tennis with like your partner and literally just talking to them for like 4 minutes, getting to know them and just playing, which I think that is just insane. So in that 4 minutes, you said you're like trying to get to know the horse in a type of way. Can you explain how you like try to understand that horse whenever you're doing the jumping seat? Because I know with like the strides and things like that.
Yeah, so a lot of it like does depend just kind of on the horse's attitude. If they're a little bit like, maybe they're a little faster or a little bit slower, or like they like just like a little bit of a softer ride or maybe not. And yeah, like you said, like the strides of the horses are a lot different. So you have to kind of adjust a little bit like how you ride to fit like a certain number of strides in between the jumps. And
every horse probably has a different stride.
Yeah.
But
like
is there like a way that if you're on the horse, can you like feel?
Yeah,
like
which like that's something that you just develop like
Okay.
over time, just like, and that's like a big part of it too, is like you have to like be able to like get on any horse and kind of like adjust the way that you ride, because they're not going to adjust to you too much. Like they'll help you out here and there, but like realistically, like you do have to just be able to adapt like really quickly and just kind of work with what you're working with. And some schools have really, really nice horses that might be a little bit easier to figure out and get along with sooner. And then some schools, like you might have a lot harder of a time trying to figure out the best way to ride them.
Yeah. And so when y'all are at practice at Baylor, do y'all practice with a different horse every week or every day that you're practicing?
So I would say like our coaches do a good job of trying to kind of rotate us through, like, okay. So we are consistently practicing on like getting to ride all the horses that we have. And out of those 30 that we have, probably around like 10 of them kind of like, we have kind of like the same like roster of horses that we use for competing, and then a good bit of other horses that we just use in practice.
Got it.
So she tries to keep us a little bit on the kind of show horses, the roster horses, especially when we have home meets coming up. And then maybe if we have an away meet, then we'll prepare a little bit more by riding the ones that we don't ride quite as often, to try to like kind of get back into that mentality of just being able to adapt and adjust to whatever you're working with.
Yeah, and that's good that y'all do that and during like practice, so it can prepare you for competitions. And I know you mentioned whenever you were doing equestrian before college, you had one horse, correct, that you were like always training and competing with. How was that? How were you able to adjust that when you came to college?
So for me, I kind of had like a little bit of an advantage of, so outside of school, like, yeah, I had my own horse and stuff, but I did like have the opportunity to ride and show a lot of like my trainer's horses and riding other clients' horses or my friends' horses, and just like kind of having that opportunity to kind of prepare myself a little bit by riding different horses, or kind of like that same thing of where maybe I would like compete on a horse that like I hadn't ridden before. And I think a lot of that prepared me well for the way that this works.
I literally,
'cause it's so different. Like I
Yeah.
had no idea how it worked like at all before I came here. Like it's not something that like is like super, people are super familiar with like at all really until like we get here. And especially for like people that don't know the sport of equestrian, like it's like a like whole foreign place. Like
Yeah.
like it's just like not super common, but it's really cool.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, just I'm so excited to go to y'all's
I know,
meet.
I'm so excited you're coming.
Have you ever seen like people not be able to adjust to being with different horses all the time? Like, is that common for people just to not click with different horses every practice? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like there's definitely some horses that we have that I don't get along great with, and that's why like it makes it hard for coaches too to recruit people, because they see the people like when they're out watching them compete outside, like in high school, or trying to find people to come join the team and recruit. They see them riding their own horses, so it's kind of hard to tell for the coaches sometimes like how they're gonna do like on college horses, because like all of our horses are donated too, so they're all here for a reason. Maybe they're like a little bit on the crazy side, or
They all have a range of personalities.
like they're all here for some reason. They got donated.
Yeah, and I would never
we love
think.
them.
Yeah, I would never think about the college coaches even having difficulty recruiting people, because it's never going to be the same with club. I don't know, with equestrian, things like that going into college. So just every aspect of equestrian just has some sort of difficulty that most sports don't have. So I think it's super cool, and especially whenever y'all compete, it's definitely like great to get to know that about the sport. So okay, cool. Alrighty, guys, I want to take a minute about talking about an amazing clothing brand. It's called Born to Me, and it's owned by Daniel Talley. He's awesome, and I love what he's doing with the brand. The story about it is amazing. The goal is simple. They aim to give every individual the opportunity to, and this is on their website, 1, acknowledge who they are, 2, accept who they are, and 3, embrace who they are. So their clothing, they only have 4 products, but I mean, I wear their hoodie constantly. It has like an amazing satin hood to it, which doesn't really damage your hair much. So I highly recommend it. It will be linked on my YouTube and also on Spotify, and y'all should go check it out. And you can use Briana1, Briana, the number 1, and you can get 15% off on your clothing. Alrighty, cool. Okay, we're gonna switch it up a little bit. So we're gonna talk about your family and how they've supported you through this sport. I know equestrian can be a pretty expensive sport, and how they have supported you, things like that.
No, my family has been like so incredibly supportive. Like I started riding horses whenever I was about 5 years old, and it just kind of like I did like all the sports, like trying to figure out like what I liked, like basketball, volleyball, soccer, kind of a little bit of everything, and just happened to stick with like the horse thing. And my parents like really have been amazing, like supporting me through that, like since I was 5 up until now. And like I know they're always like going to be supportive of me, and it's like it's so much more than like just them like helping me financially, or just like kind of going along with it, like traveling with me and everything and coming to the meets and stuff. It's just like it really just like shows that like and
It's okay. You can lose your train of thought.
But what I was saying is like my parents are just, no, you're good, are just so supportive of like everything I decide to do, like whether it be like with sports or with school or outside of school, just in life, like with everything. Like my whole family has just like supported like every decision that I've made, and it's just so like comforting to know that like they're always gonna have my back. And I've like kind of changed my mind a couple times with like my major and like my track for like what I want to do with my whole life really. And just every time that I like pick up the phone and call them like, hey, like changing my major again today, like they're just like, oh, like great, like what can we do, like how do you need to get prepared for like this next step and everything. And it's just like they've really been amazing.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to piggyback off of that because that's kind of like the same thing I'm going through too. Like I wanted to become like a news reporter, but then I wanted to start this podcast. And like my parents' generation, podcasts are not very big. They don't really understand much about it. And they just want me to be happy. And they're like, whatever you need, we got you. And having parents like that, especially like with your sport and all that, really helps. And one thing I was thinking of when you were speaking is, how did you get involved with equestrian? Or like, did your parents find it, or?
Honestly, like, I mean, I was pretty young, so like, I don't remember too much, but I mean, yeah, like it was just kind of like another sport to try, like something kind of, probably, I'm sure my parents were thinking more that it was just going to be like kind of like a fun little hobby for whenever I was a kid, not quite this long of a road. But yeah, I mean, I just kind of tried it out and just happened to like it and really stuck with it.
Yeah, no, I think that's super cool and incredible. And so you were talking about how you were like switching majors and things like that, and being a biology major and being in a sport, I know is a lot. I've heard from a lot of other student athletes how difficult it is. Can you talk about how you've been able to manage your time with your sport and with your academics?
Yeah, for sure. So I've actually been a bio major like my whole time in school. Like I just keep changing the track that I'm on. So I was like pre-PA for a while and then pre-med for a really long time. And then just this past spring semester last year, I switched to nursing. So like the whole time, like I've been like having to take like super hard classes, and unfortunately I was pre-med for most of the time. So I did take a lot of classes that I don't end up needing now. But just as far as like the time management, you just have to really, really be like dedicated and like committed to what you want to do, and know that like if you put in the hours and all the time and effort now, like it's really going to pay off, and it's really going to help to develop you as a person. And like going into the rest of your life, like looking back, like knowing like, hey, like I was able to manage like being a D1 athlete and being a pre-med bio major or whatever major. Like I know like they're honestly all super hard and pretty time consuming. So just like knowing that if you like really do just like focus and put in the time and effort, like you're going to be able to figure everything out. And, you know, we do have a great, like, you know, like in Baylor athletics, like our support there, like with athletics and academics. And we really do have like a lot of like super great options to help keep us on track with that.
Yeah, I never really realized that until now as well. So I think that's super cool. And do you have any like time and management like techniques that you use, or like advice that you've seen that's helped you through your college?
I just try to really like stay a little bit ahead of my school whenever I can. You know, like, and I tried to make my schedule like throughout the years to where I wouldn't have too many super hard classes at once. But I don't know, honestly.
Okay.
Like, I don't really know kind of how I managed it. I just like would try to sit down, and if I was doing homework, I would just try to like get as much done as I could, like maybe set a timer for like an hour or something, or like say like, okay, from 7 to 8, like I'm just going to do this, and then I'll take a break for a little while or whatever. But
no,
just
I like
like trying to stay on top of everything as much as you can and not really get too behind.
Yeah, I think that's super cool. And with you going into nursing, I think you can take the qualities of being a student athlete going into that. And I hope you really like it. Alrighty, so for this last part, I post your bio and things like that on Sikkim 365, and I ask them questions that they may want to ask you. So I have about 3 questions I'm going to be asking you. So the first one is from Debikins. I'm so sorry if I say your name wrong. So his daughter is 13 years old, and she's been riding for about 5 years and is involved in the U.S. Pony Club. And he wants to know what's the best way to support that pursuit, and what type of goals should she have for improving in dressage and jumping, etc., things like that.
Yeah, so I would say if she wants to ride in college, you know, like kind of like we were talking about, like how like you're riding so many different horses all the time. Like the more experience I would say that she has just like riding different horses and everything like that's like really going to help her out in the future. And, you know, when she is like kind of getting to that recruiting age, where coaches can start talking to her, just like really be persistent about like, you know, like sending them videos and just like reaching out. And I would say just really like just keep with it and keep working hard, like keep training a lot and as much as you can, and you could definitely get there.
Yeah, no, I definitely can. I think just having like the different horses aspects can help people a lot, and I just learned that from talking to you for like 20 minutes. So my next one is from Brown BW, and he said, which horse is your favorite?
I would say we have one named Teddy, and I actually took him home one summer to like a barn that I was riding at like outside of school. So he's probably my favorite.
And why is he your favorite?
He's just so sweet. He has the best personality.
So what's like a bad personality? What would y'all call them?
I mean, like the personality is like is really just like kind of like what you like, whether they're like a little sweeter, like sassier. But as far as like the ones we use for like showing and stuff, like on the roster, really depends like a lot on like their like experience that they had like before they came to school, and just like in general like how like fancy they are.
Do y'all have like sheets of like the horse, and it says like this horse is hot-headed? Or
yeah, no, we actually do like for like the like away schools that are coming in to compete against us, we give them like a sheet with, it's called a horse description sheet, and it just says like probably like one sentence about the horse that like
that's crazy.
Try to help them out a little bit.
Can some horses that say certain things on that sheet, can they perform completely different than what that sheet, like if let's say if a horse is like bad, can they perform better whenever they're out there on the ring? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'd say we definitely have some that like come out a lot better on competition day than they do in everyday practice for some reason.
That's sneaky. They just know. They just want to get in your head.
They do.
Alrighty, and then the last question is from Ashley Hodge. He asked, how does it feel to dominate the Texas schools this year, and which school whined more after losing, TCU or A&M?
I would say A&M probably whined a little bit more, but it's been a great season so far. It's been super fun. Like, I feel like we've been super consistent as a team, and I'm really excited to see where it's going to take us.
Yeah, and y'all are number 3 right now, right, in the nation? I know. I saw y'all lost to Oklahoma State, who's number 1 by 1 point.
Yeah, no, we were number like 8 or 9 for a lot of the year last year, and then when we went to nationals, you know, it's like the seeds where it's like number 1 goes against number 8 or whatnot. And we actually beat Auburn, who was number 1, and now we're working our way back to the top.
Was it home or away?
So nationals is like more neutral. Okay. So it's like, it was in Waco. This year it's in Florida, which will be super fun.
Wow.
Yeah. But so it's at a place that like nobody competes at during the year to make it as fair as possible.
Yeah. No, I love that. Well, thank you, Caroline. That was awesome.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I've learned so much about equestrian, about yourself. I think you're an amazing person. And, you know, that's the whole point of this podcast. I want people to not just know that you're an athlete, but more with what's underneath, with like your family and them supporting you in school and things like that, and you pursuing nursing school. I think that is awesome. If you want to have more updates on the Untold Stories, you can follow the YouTube channel called the Untold Stories Athlete Edition, and also on Spotify, it's called the same thing, the Untold Stories Athlete Edition. And on Sikkim 365, I post weekly things about what's going to be coming next. Hopefully, I can do men's basketball. They just started their season, so that one's going to be a little tricky. And then next weekend, Equestrian will have their home meet at 11 a.m. on Friday and Saturday. So I'm super excited to get to go watch. And if any of the listeners or watchers are in Waco, y'all should come and stop by and support. Thank you, guys.